In this video I show my favorite strength exercise for this region, more technically the quadratus lumborum. So it is about lifting up the rib cage, elongating here and shortening here. I will show you two exercises, or let's say one exercise and two variations, but they are relatively different from each other. And I will start with showing the exercise and then I will explain the reasoning behind it. So if you just want to see the exercise, you just have to watch the first half and I don't bore you with too many explanations. As you see, I use a band and I step in the middle of the band, so it's half on both sides. And I go into a wider stance, so it's sort of a diagonal stance, not forward like this, but I chose something like 45 degrees out. Yeah. Then I go forward, yeah, from the pelvis. I go forward like this, and I round the back. Now I have to find a place to hold the band that makes sense. So if I feel that I have to now grab very low here, and it might be that there's not much band anymore to pull from, then I will go a bit higher up, choose an angle that works better like this. Okay, make sure elbow is straight here, and there is like almost a pull now. Yeah, there's not a pull yet, but directly I can engage. Okay, so nice rounding of the back. Boom. That's my starting position, the hunchback. And from there I straighten, yeah, and I try to extend even. And again I hunch forward and extend. Hunch forward and extend. Hunch forward and extend. And you see, I'm just working here from the spine in that sense, from the spine and the rib cage, not from the pelvis. Many of us, we are used to lift things up with a straight back. Yeah, many of my students are used to do good mornings, being able to go forward. They really learn this as a skill, going forward from the pelvis and not round in the back. Yeah, so I have to also concentrate that I'm not doing this, because my usual thing would be to go like that. But now, no pelvis involvement here, from spine and rib cage should be the movement, and this stays the same. Okay, so that's the first half of this exercise that I do ipsilateral, which means same side. Yeah, like this, same side. Then I grab with the opposite and have a bit different line here, a bit different trajectory of how the band pulls, a bit more rotation as you see. Again, rounding, going into a nice position, and then extension. Round, extend. Round, extend. And so on and so forth. And then obviously I do the same thing on the other side. I put it here, I do ipsi, I do contra. Yeah, so this is, let's say, semi-bilateral work. Both sides, from the spine, the left and the right side, they both work, vice versa. They both work in this exercise, but because of the twist and because the band is more on one side, one of the sides will work more than the other. But it's not a pure unilateral. So yeah, you can say semi-bilateral, semi-unilateral means the same. So it's only sort of. It's a bit of an in-between thing. Okay, my friend Jonathan Schmid, he likes to do a version that is very unilateral, where you go much more sideways. Also nice. Notice that there can be different angles here. Yeah, I went a bit more forward, but you could also do it more upright. It depends a bit on the length of the band, also on what you can set up well on the strength. But I in particular like this version. You can find something that works for you, but I propose this. So this is, I would say, level 1. Motorically a bit more difficult, but I like it more because it works with this region a bit differently, is level 2. In level 2, you are adding in a motion of the pelvis into posterior and anterior tilt. So when I go down with the rib cage, I go into posterior pelvic tilt, which means I tilt the pelvis backwards like this, yeah, so the lower back comes a bit out. Yeah, it's like I flatten here. And when I go up, I go into anterior tilt. So anterior tilt means the pelvis is tilting forward and you have more of an arch here happening if you let the spine follow. So posterior pelvic tilt and going down, anterior pelvic tilt and extending the ribcage up. So it's very connected. Yeah, it sort of makes sense, this movement. Tuck, lengthening completely, and then shortening completely. So the setup is the same in that sense. Yeah, I choose again something that works for me. How low I grab, angle here, then I bend, maybe re-grab a bit. Yeah, this seems good for me. And now, boom. From the pelvis, from the spine and ribcage, bring my ribcage and my pelvis close to each other. Boom. Close to each other. And then rounding again. Ipsi and also contra. Yeah, and that directly creates a very nice feeling for me in this region that is different from the first version. I figured out this version when I actually had acutely something on one side because I was carrying my son and took something out very low from the car. So I had him here, he weighs around like 15 kilograms. I had him here and I took something out from the car, and then I felt after like, this region didn't like it. It's now a bit afraid here. Yeah, it's a bit pulling. And then I played a bit around, did this exercise, and this directly took some of the tension away. I felt much better. Yeah, before I felt like medium, and afterwards I felt almost super good. Okay, that's where I really fell in love with this second version, but I would say don't start with this because motorically, coordination wise, it's a bit more difficult to understand this motion of the two, of the pelvis and the ribcage, instead of just moving the ribcage like this. Okay, now I explain a bit about the reasoning behind it. So why would you train this region? I already gave a bit of a glimpse. Like for me, it became an important thing when I realized carrying my children, which are both still in an age where I carry them a lot, is quite in demand actually for this region, especially if you carry them in front here, and if you do carry them and you need to do other things, yeah, which is very often the case, that you don't just carry your children, but okay, child wants to be close to you, but at the same time you cook something or you pick something up, and so on and so forth. Also, I think for many this region is quite weak because of too much sitting. There's lots of extension here, yeah. This gets lengthened a lot from the sitting, and thus it's not really strong in this pattern of pulling yourself up, especially not against resistance. And can actually, if you're used to pull things up like this, in a sense make it even worse. Like, not that you become, how do I phrase it well? Because you're just using this as a stabilizer, you know? Like if I work like this and I don't have the dynamic action under load, yeah, I'm taking an ability out of this region, and this might eventually lead to back pain. And I know from other people, from other friends of mine, that also people that don't have children, that when they started with some sort of work for this region with bending and extension, if it's forward or if it's more sideways, but just working this region here, that this helped them a lot with staying away from pain. I also realized it helps me with my bridging, for example. If I do this, afterwards my bridge feels much better. This region is activated. There seems to be like less anxiety in this region, like it lets me open much better. So for all sorts of arching things like bridging or arching acrobatics, that's probably also a good idea, combining it with working more on the side, working on the front as well. And this is why my friend Jonathan started this work also, because he felt that when he does a lot of arching acrobatics, I need a bit more core strength, he felt. Okay, and doing some work for here, also for the sides and for the front, is making a lot of sense. But many people know the planks or side planks, but this is maybe often also not worked so much under load, because we all heard that, okay, when you lift something up, the back should be straight. But here I'm not using a lot of load. Yeah, this is still okay, this is still under control. Obviously choose a band that makes sense for you. Should not be too hard. So usually I would do 5 repetitions ipsi, 5 repetitions contra, and then on the other side 5 repetitions ipsi, 5 repetitions contra, and often I would do 2 sets. Sometimes I would do 3, but I'm more going for a high frequency, which means I do it, let's say, sort of every day 2 sets I do of this. If you do it less time in the week, you might want to do more sets. You might want to do 3 sets, maybe even 4 sets of this, but because we go for a bit of a higher rep range, it's a total of 20, 5, 5, 5, 5. You don't need so many sets. How much time do you rest in between the sets? I don't usually time it, I just go by feeling, but if you want to have a very clear number, then please go for 2 minutes rest in between the sets. Okay, so the reason why I use the band for this, because Jonathan is doing it with a dumbbell. My friend Sasha also has a dumbbell version that is very, very similar to this one that he does. I don't want to be bound to a dumbbell. Yeah, I like the band because I can always have it with me. I can have several bands lying around. I can have one in my home, I can have one in the bag, I can have one in my office. Yeah, and they don't cost much. This is from a big sport and outdoor chain. I don't know, this costs maybe 15 euros, so you can get 3 or at least 2 of one a bit thicker, one a bit less strong. So you have an option, because you can use it for many things. Yeah, I don't want to advertise the bands too much, but what I just like about the band is that you can always have it with you. And that's the problem about if you're too much bound to a piece of equipment and you don't have it, then yeah, how are you going to do the training? Yeah, things like a sled or a hex bar, like all these things are super nice, but how many people have this in their home? So I don't want to be bound to the gym, although I appreciate these more sophisticated pieces of equipment. That's why I chose to do a version with the band, and this is also what I mainly show. I do it in my group classes where I can just have bands with me, and I don't carry like 20 dumbbells with me to a group class, but I can easily carry 20 bands. What is the problem with the band? The problem with the band is that you might not even know how much pull it has, so you have to go a bit by feeling or seeing how thick is this. Yeah, try a bit. It's maybe a bit more difficult to measure, and obviously depending on where you grip, like yeah, if I just pull here compared to pull here, it might react a bit differently, and also the first part of the pull is more difficult than when it's like already very far pulled apart, obviously, because at some point you will not be able to pull it further or it will break. Yeah, so for the ones that are, let's say, very number space and want everything to be very clear, maybe the band for them is a bit of a scary tool, because yeah, it's not so measurable as a dumbbell and also not so easy to increase resistance. I mean, what I would do here is just grab a bit lower, and that would increase the resistance a bit. Okay, so I would advise everyone to add such work, if it's these exercises that I showed you or if it's other exercises for this part here. I would advise you to at least try it and see what happens, especially for the people that sit a lot, yeah, that need to work in an office, especially for the young parents. No, it doesn't matter if you're young, parents of young children, your age doesn't matter. Parents of young children where you carry them a lot, try this. For me, as a parent of young children, it was very, very helpful, this exercise. And see what happens if you do this sort of every day, or at least a few times a week. Doesn't take long to do 2 sets. 1 set is also enough if you just have no time in your life. Yeah, see what happens within a few weeks, if your back feels better, and also if it reminds you, actually, because I realized also that doing it regularly, it acted as a reminder to open up. Yeah, I catch myself more regularly if I stand like this around, boom, like this. I'm a bit tired. Yeah, I go like this. No, I let this pull on my rib cage, let myself be pulled up into a nice position again, because I want to carry myself through life more in that position instead of this position here. Okay, so for this, it's a very nice exercise. I really like it. I'm a fan.